right, everybody, welcome to JCLive, your weekly source for JCL news and fun. I am your host, Mr. Kurt Ristroff, Publications Chair for the National Junior Classical League, an organization for middle and high school students in classical courses. How's everybody doing today? On this Labor Day Monday, everybody gets a day off from school, a day off from work. I hope you had a good day. We've got a good show for you. We've got a show for you, for one thing, so we're going to talk about that. After that, we're going to bring on some national officers who are going to talk to you about what they've been up to, and then we'll bring on NJCL President Daniel Newgarden as our feature for tonight. We'll be talking to him about his JCL journey, this year's theme, whatever else comes up, probably Chicago, probably some board games, things like that. So, I see we've got some viewers. We've got the live chats going. Some rules: if you have a question for us to answer, tag us in the live chat. Let's see, the channel name is at NJCL Social Media. So I think if you type that in, or you type in at National Junior Classical League, you'll be able to tag us. I'll try and get to all of the tags. If I can't get to your question, we'll get to it next time. Don't worry about it. And of course, tell your friends. We're going to let some people filter in over the next 10 minutes or so. We're going to start off with some announcements, some things that aren't super critical. Let some people join on, talk about some housekeeping things, that kind of thing. And then we'll get along with the national officers and our feature for the night. So, to start off with, let's go through this week's announcements and updates. So we're going to do this every week. This is going to be the style for the show. We'll start off, like I said, take care of some housekeeping things, go through some deadlines that are coming up for things you might not know about. Those of you who are JCLers who may not have been to the National Convention before, you might not know that there's a Club of the Month contest every month that you can enter. So we'll remind you about those kind of things, show you about that kind of stuff, go through some other deadlines and some other announcements. Then we'll have two officers on to give reports or updates or stories of classical interest, something classically related that's happened in the news. Oh, they discovered a new mosaic underneath some building in Britain, that kind of thing. And then we'll bring on a feature. We've got a lot of feature shows lined up for you already. We're starting off with interviewing some of the national officers, but we've got much more in the works, don't worry. There are a lot of very exciting features that we have planned. So let's jump right into it, into the announcements. First things first, you should join JCL. I'm imagining that particularly today, most of our viewers are JCLers who have been in the club for a while, know about the national organization. But for those of you who don't, or for the parents in the audience or the teachers in the audience who are considering starting a JCL chapter, the Junior Classical League is a national organization. There are opportunities for leadership, for skills development, for service projects. We have tons of state and national competitions. It's a really welcoming environment. You'll hear testimonial after testimonial from JCLers, current and former, about how much they love the organization, how much they got out of it, both academically and socially. So it's a great organization, and you'll notice throughout the next couple of announcements some themes. There are lots of benefits to being in JCL. A lot of the programming that we offer is only available to members. A lot of the contests that we run, you get a discount if you're a JCL member, for example, on our online exams, that kind of thing. So join JCL. There's a link in the video description for how to join. And that's another running theme on all these shows, is that everything I say up here, particularly for the announcements part, check the link in the description. There are many links in the video description that will take you to wherever you need to go. So there's a link for joining JCL that'll take you right to our website and show you exactly what to do. Here's a map that was recently in the Torch US, which is our national quarterly magazine. There will be a slide about that in a couple of slides, don't worry, of all of our state chapters. So I would like nothing more than for someone who's not in JCL but is taking Latin or ancient Greek or a classical humanities course to come across this live stream and say, oh my goodness, there's a JCL in my state. I want to get involved in that. That sounds really cool. So check out the map. If there's not a JCL in your state, you can start one, and we can put you in touch with the people who will take you step by step through starting one. It's not a hard process. It only takes one student and a teacher. or a parent. If you're homeschooled, we've got plenty of homeschooled chapters, so that's not a problem. You can get in touch. And if there's a JCL in your area, consider joining. It's really an awesome organization. Next announcement is about the Torch US, like I said, our quarterly national magazine. You can subscribe to it using one of the links in the video description below, and you can read the most recent issue, which came out 6 days ago on September 1st. It was put together by our national editor. So those of you who don't know, there are 7 national officers who are high school students that are very dedicated to the Junior Classical League and work very hard to make the organization as much fun as it is. One of those offices is the editor, or the Torch US editor. So every year at our national convention in late July, there is a new set of national officers who get elected, and the old editor, the outgoing editor, and the incoming editor work together to produce the fall issue, which comes out September 1st. This year's issue, the fall 2020 issue, like I said, came out last week. It's got a full convention recap from the national convention, which was virtual this year, and tons of other content, lots of information for you. So go ahead and check it out. There's a video link in the description. Like I said, you'll notice a theme here. Next announcement, for those of you who have been in JCL for a while, what's your favorite JCL memory ever? Tell us about it. Tell us all the context. Tell us the whole story. It doesn't have to be a national convention memory. It can be from a really good local event that you did. Did you go play Ultimate Frisbee in the park and you made lifelong JCL friends? Was it your first let's say it was your first high school club activity and you really fell in love with JCL, and you met a senior who really inspired you to be part of the organization and take up a leadership role. Tell us about it. Tell us your favorite memory ever. If you can't limit it to one, you can give us more than one, but I'd like you to give us these memories in as much detail and with as much context as possible for a book that we are writing. The JCL Book Project, we're calling this. That's not going to be the title of the book. The book's going to have a fun name, and we'll reveal that eventually. We've got a name for it. It's a great name, and that'll be coming out. That might be a subscriber goal. We'll see. I said that's an opportunity for people who have been in JCL for a while. It's also an opportunity for people who are JCL alums. So that senior who really inspired you and is now in college, or that teacher that you had who was a JCLer back in the day, send the link to everybody. We want to hear from as many JCL alumni as possible also. And the organization's been around for more than 60 years, so there are a lot of them out there. We'd like to hear from all of you. Other announcements. The National Classical Etymology Exam, which is an online exam that JCL offers, one of 3. It's the one that happens in the fall. There are 2 that happen in the spring. Registration for the NCEE is open now and runs through October 27th. So if you're one of the people who takes the online exams, they're very popular. You can sign up now. The link is in the description, and you've got a month and a half to do that. Don't forget to study. Another thing, every year we give away a Kurtamen machine. So those of you who don't know, Kurtamen is Latin quiz bowl, basically. There are questions from grammar, Roman life and customs, history, mythology, vocabulary, etc. It's a very intense, very fast-paced competition. There's a very vibrant national scene for Kurtamen, and we want to encourage new schools and schools that haven't played Kurtamen very much in the past to consider joining that scene. One of the ways that we do that is by giving away a Kurtamen machine every year. This is different from the Kurtamen machine raffle that some of you who have been to nationals might have heard about. We raffle off a Kurtamen machine. We also give away a Kurtamen machine to a school that doesn't have one and wants to become part of that scene. So you can read the criteria here, and if you're interested, you should tell your Latin teacher to consider submitting a application for the Kurtamen machine giveaway. Let's see. Oh, this is new today. The Creative Arts page on the NJCL website has been updated for the year, so you can check out the dramatic interpretation passages, the Latin oratory passages, and the costume contest characters. For those of you who have no idea what creative arts are, you can check out the page. These are some of our competitions that will be held at the national convention. Some of them are, all of these are at convention. A lot of states will take these passages. For example, the Latin oratory passage. The premise is, if you're in Latin 1, you memorize this passage in Latin, and you learn how to recite it, and you learn how to recite it really well, and then you recite it, and if you do a good job, you might win a prize. A lot of states will adopt the passages that Nationals puts out. So even if you're not planning on coming to the National Convention, if you're a JCLer and you're interested in going to your state convention, they may use these same passages, so you might want to get a leg up or a head start on working on those now. If you've got any questions, you can email Mr. Seth Knowles. Okay, last thing is general JCLive stream rules. Please don't spam the chat. Keep things appropriate. This is effectively a school event, so don't say anything you wouldn't want to say in front of your teachers or your parents. Like I said, tag the account with questions, and we'll try to get to the questions. I don't see a lot of people tagging me. I'm trying to keep an eye on 2 monitors, and I haven't seen much tagging, so that's good. But if you do have questions, feel free to tag me. And then we've got some subscriber goals for the year. Right now, our channel has about 500 subscribers. We'd like to grow that. This is a larger organization than 500 students. We typically have between 30 and 40,000 members. I'd like for as many of them to watch this weekly show as possible. We'll have content that's for everybody. Really, we have a huge cross-section of content coming down the pipeline. So keep an eye out for that and try to get as many people to watch and subscribe as possible. I see somebody just subscribed. That's great. You can see we've got the little alert set up. Yeah, tell your friends. Tell everybody you know. Your parents can certainly watch. Your teachers can watch. This is an opportunity for more people than just JCLers to find out more about JCL also. So anyway, tell as many people as you know, try to get more viewers, and try to grow our subscriber count. If we get to 1,000 subscribers, we'll raffle off some merchandise. If we get to 2,000, we'll have an officer lip sync or karaoke night, lip sync / karaoke night, not sure what it's going to be. And our stretch goal is if we can increase our number of subscribers by an order of magnitude, that is tenfold, we will have the NJCL officers play the national committee, who are the 12 adults like me who run JCL on the day-to-day. We'll play Fortnite against each other, or we'll play Heroes of the Storm against each other, or we'll... I don't know, you can't really play Risk of Rain 2 against each other. That's one of my favorite games right now. But we'll play something. Maybe we'll play StarCraft 2. I don't know. We'll play something, some video game against each other, kids versus adults, and stream it live here for a special show. So try and help us grow our subscriber count, and we'll see if we can get there. Can there be music next stream? Well, it depends. I just found out today that you can check beforehand. Normally what happens is there will be That's Entertainment at the National Convention. We'll film That's Entertainment. It's our talent show. And a lot of times somebody will be dancing, say, to a popular song, and we'll video that and we'll upload it to YouTube, and then YouTube will copyright strike it and the video will get taken down. I found out today that there's a way to tell beforehand if a song has that copyright strike status on YouTube. And so we can look into songs to play that aren't going to get copyright stricken, and look into that for next time. Sure. Okay. So with that, we're going to bring on 2 of our national officers to talk about what they've been up to. So let me get that set up 1 second. Hey, Rais and Lindy, are y'all there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yup.
Welcome to the show, Rais Kambaj, the NJCL First Vice President, and Lindy Rainig, the NJCL Second Vice President. Rais, you get to go first. You've got the floor. What's up? How's it going?
Okay. Salwete Omes. I'm your NJCL First Vice President, Rais Kambaj, and I'm from Nevada. Yes, it's pronounced Nevada, not Nevada. So anyway, I'm extremely excited to be working with my fellow national officers this year and great first VPs from across the country. Since nationals ended, I've been working hard with the NJCL board and committee members to create new methods for increasing publicity and expanding membership. And one of these activities you're seeing right now on your screen, JCLive. JCLive is only the greatest classically themed live stream on the internet. Every week, we'll bring you the JCLers, regular updates, interviews, and quality content made with JCLive. So, but other than JCLive, I've been working on my state motto initiative, which, for those who don't know, is a plan to coordinate many state JCLs to obtain state Latin mottos. And if they already have state Latin mottos, they'll work on getting classically themed legislation. I'm currently in the process of contacting many different states who have either gotten a Latin state motto or have expressed interest in obtaining one this year. So if anyone is interested in contacting me about the state motto initiative, or really anything related to the first VP office, you can always email me at vp1@njcl.org. Now, my goal for the state motto initiative is to have a publication done by the end of 2020, before the majority of state legislatures can reconvene. So please be on the lookout for that. Other than my state motto initiative, I've been working on the NJCL promotional flyer with Miss Sturgill and Mr. Little. I've sent in the edits needed for this year, and we should be good to go very soon. So please be on the lookout for that.
All right. Thanks. And what's the email address that people can reach you at if they've got any questions, Reyes?
vp1@njcl.org.
Alex Zhu asks, is the VP capital or lowercase? The answer is it does not matter.
But it is lowercase.
But it is lowercase, yes. Okay, Lindy, how are you doing? Thanks, Reyes.
I'm doing good. I imagine you're doing well because today's our first JCLive show.
It is. It is. Welcome to the show.
I'm so excited. I hope everyone watching is having a good night, a good day, I guess. So to talk a little bit about what I've been up to, the main thing is I met with my predecessor, Athena, and I'm now updated on all the files and procedures. I am in charge of the Spirit and Service GroupMe, so if anyone needs to contact me, you can find me there or at my email, bp2@njcl.org. I've also been making plans for Club of the Month. And on that point, I am excited to debut the Club of the Month packet, so I'm going to share my screen and show you guys.
Go for it.
All right, are you seeing this, Mr. Ristraw?
Yep. It's visible, it's live.
All right, so Club of the Month is an NJCL contest that helps to recognize local chapters for their work organizing service, projects, and activities. Any local chapter in good standing is allowed to enter, and to enter, you simply just have to fill out a Club of the Month Google form, which will be accessible to all of you in the future. As you can see, I'm going to be providing it through a multitude of different ways. Submissions will be due on the last day of every month. So if that's the 30th, it'll be the 30th. If that's the 31st, it'll be the 31st. Obviously, you understand. And lastly, I have provided a whole bunch of themes. You do not have to follow those themes. Those are simply suggestions. But if you do follow them, you can look forward to gaining a little bit of a bonus. So that's exciting. And as you can see here, we're doing September through May. And so we have all the themes. We have Seasons Change September, Outdoors October, New Club November, Dining December, Jump in January, Fellowship February, Mythological March, Appreciation April, and Make It Yourself May. And all of my themes come with a description, or our themes, I guess, but I came up with them, come with a description of types of activities, fundraisers, spirit activities that you and your club can do. And really, they were made to accommodate both schools that are virtual and in person. And they're really made for you to be able to interpret them as you wish. So I'm so excited to release this because this is what I've been working on since since I took over the position from Athena. So I'm so excited, and I hope everyone likes it. And I'll be sending it all the ways that I am able to reach out to state second VPs and local second VPs.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Lindy. Before you and Reyes go, I have a question for you. And the question is, you're the first and second vice president, respectively. What would a third vice president do? I've been seeing a lot of people call for, NJCL should have a third vice president. What should the third VP do?
I would say the third VP should be in charge of all JCL memes, regardless of they're about the national committee or just their state.
Doesn't that fall under the office of editor? Should we make the editor the third vice president?
I don't see why not.
Lindy, how about you? What do you think?
I think that maybe we could use somebody to do all the like grunt work for me and Rais. Like maybe they could send all our emails, be like our secretary. I don't think anyone wants that position though, so that's not a good one.
Hmm. All right.
Maybe someone in charge of TikTok.
I think that's my job. Great. All right. Well, that's a hot take on the third VP. We'll circle back on that and get back to you. Okay, so for now, Lindy and Rais are going to jump into the chat on the stream, and they'll be around. If you've got any questions, you can tag them in the chat. Thanks so much, and we'll see y'all next time.
Walete.
Wale. All right, and with that, it is my pleasure to introduce the NJCL President, Mr. Daniel Newgarden from Illinois. Daniel, are you there?
Yes, I am, Mr. Istroff. How's it going?
All right. Welcome to the show. It's going pretty well for me. Absolutely. How are you doing? How was your Monday, or Labor Day Monday?
It was pretty good. I got caught up on some work. My school, since I'm in Chicago, we start pretty late comparatively to a lot of schools, so we are starting tomorrow, actually. So I picked up all my books for that on Friday, and we're starting virtually tomorrow morning.
Okay. Are you using Zoom or GoToMeeting or what platform?
Google Meets, actually, because my school district pushes everything through Google Classroom, so Meets is kind of affiliated with that, and it's much easier for everyone to use.
Okay. Did you have any summer reading?
I did, actually. I've been reading a lot this summer. I think a lot of JCLers might agree with me when I say that, it's kind of hard for us to read. I think kind of social media and a lot of the digital world may have kind of messed with our attention spans, at least with mine, I know for sure. But recently I've been trying to read a lot. So I've been getting some nice classics reads in. I'm reading Adrian Mayer's book right now, The First Fossil Hunters. It's actually really interesting. It's about kind of how ancient people, classical civilizations, Greece and Rome, kind of viewed fossils and used them to support their own interpretations of the world. Like, for example, mammoth and mastodon bones were often confused for the bones of giant heroes like Hercules. I don't think Hercules specifically, but other heroes in that vein. I think Achilles had his own hero's skeleton made of mastodon bones, and then many others. So it's really captivating and interesting.
That's incredible. They just made a giant Achilles out of mammoth bones.
Yeah, because actually when you kind of look at the skeletons and you arrange them in a way that you would, ancient people might expect that I'm going to arrange this as a human would be arranged. They wouldn't know what a mammoth looked like or how to arrange the skeleton.
Mm-hmm.
So they'd arrange it and it would look relatively humanoid. It would look kind of large and kind of bulky and clunky, like a giant almost. And some of them were kind of interpreted to be giants as well. But that is how they constructed a lot of them. And then it kind of became like a calling card or a treasure for a city to have the bones of their like namesake hero.
That's so cool.
It is really interesting. And it's something, we don't really think of the Greeks and Romans as knowing anything about fossils because we think of that as a much later thing. But, that's what the whole book is about. It's about that they were very aware of fossils and they were used extensively for different kind of purposes, both symbolic and practical.
That's awesome. What was the name of the book again?
So it's called The First Fossil Hunters by Adrian Mayer. She's a wonderful historian of folklore and classical civilization. She has some other books. One that came out most recently is called Gods and Robots, I believe. It's about kind of automatons in the ancient world and ancient literature, and then also kind of the earliest mechanical structures and kind of apparatuses.
Yeah, because in either the Iliad, Odyssey, or Aeneid, Hephaestus has robots that work for him, right? Are those the only automatons in classical literature? Are there others that I'm forgetting?
I don't believe so, because I know there's the story of the bronze bull, and I think that's kind of interpreted as an early automaton by Adrian Mayer. I haven't read the book yet. That's probably the next one on my list by her. And she also came out with another one about Greek fire. I think it's called Greek fire, poison arrows, and something else. And it's about kind of biological and chemical warfare in the ancient world, and how that reflects in myth, like Hercules dying with the poison-soaked tunic. I'm not a specialist in the myth, so I couldn't recite it to you from memory, but it's kind of the shadow of that in Greek literature.
Gotcha. That's cool. Speaking of paleontology, it's something that I didn't appreciate until I was much older. That I've heard that Jurassic Park the movie was simultaneously the best thing and the worst thing for paleontology, at least in the 90s, because one, it was awesome and it was dinosaurs, and everybody got to see dinosaurs brought to life. But number two, there's that one shot in the beginning of the movie where, shoot, I don't even remember the main paleontologist couple's names, but
I couldn't tell you any of them.
yeah, I think it's the wife goes out to the dig site and her husband is there and he's like crouched over a complete skeleton of whatever dinosaur it is just in the ground. And he's like, "Oh, here it is." And he's like brushing dirt off it with the little paintbrush thing that they use. I know it's not a paintbrush, it's some specialized tool, but that picture of, oh, you can just happen across a complete fossil that's laid out like exactly as it would be arranged, but in two dimensions, was very damaging because that was people's expectation of paleontology was, oh, you go and you find a complete skeleton, and there's only been, I think, one complete Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton ever found, and all the other ones
And
are just bits.
I believe that complete skeleton is here in Chicago, actually. I believe it's Sue at the Field Museum. It's one of our kind of claims to fame.
Is it? For some reason I thought it was in New York, but okay.
It might be. I think ours is nearly complete. So you might be right that one is actually complete, but we're not too far here.
Okay. Well, yeah, tell me more about we wanted you to come on the show and just give JCLers a chance to ask you questions and get to know you a little bit better. So that's as fine a place as any to start. Let's start with the Field Museum in Chicago. I know that's one of your favorites. Why don't you tell us about it?
So I kind of talked about this in our introductory letter, and if anyone's wondering why Mr. Ristroff kind of knows all of this osmotically or something, the officers write letters to the committee to introduce ourselves, so that's where some of this material is being drawn, and it will be drawn for the other officer interviews. But yes, I'm a very big Chicago fan, being from Chicago, and the Field Museum. I have been lucky enough to have been going there since I was very little, and it's always, museums are kind of a special place for me. They always feel very calming, very soothing, and very interesting. And always the ancient world I was kind of fascinated with. So when I was little, I was like a really big Egypt fan. You could not, I was always like reading some kid's Egyptology book or something like that. And it just absolutely fascinated me insanely. And, I think part of that is just because how interesting and like deep in the past it feels. And then as I kind of got into middle school, I got into Greece and Rome because of that. So that's kind of how I got to JCL as well.
So did you take Latin in middle school, or you read Percy Jackson, or how'd you come to classic? I know you said through Egypt, but what was your first academic, I guess, exposure to Latin or Greek?
So I think, as with some kids, it was Percy Jackson. I think I read that in elementary school. And then one of my best friend's brothers actually went to my high school, which is kind of, if you're really familiar with ILJCL, Illinois Junior Classical League, kind of like the big schools in the game, and all the schools in the game. Northside is one of the couple CPS schools that actually teaches Latin. So he went there and he told me all about it. He told me about his first convention, kind of finding a sheet for a toga and how exciting that was for him. So that's what made me really interested in it, and that's what made me really committed to taking Latin. And then I ended up changing schools to a middle school that did offer Latin. So that was kind of how I got into the language and the more academic side of it.
Did your middle school have a JCL chapter, or you didn't come to JCL until high school?
I didn't come to JCL until high school, and then my freshman year, my middle school started sending a delegation to convention. We played Kurtamen because in Illinois, Kurtamen is kind of divorced from convention. So I played Kurtamen, I had gotten into all of that, but I hadn't had a chance to go to convention, and that's when they started sending middle schoolers to convention from my middle school.
Gotcha. So you missed out by a year. Something similar happened to me. My high school, the whole time I was there, had a rule that clubs and club trips could not take students across oceans for some reason. So Spanish club got to take a trip to Mexico, and French club got to go to Canada, and poor JCL got nothing.
That's so sad.
And then right after I graduated, they changed that rule so that people could go to Rome every several years. And I think there was there were some scholarship opportunities and things like that for folks. But I've still never been to Rome. I hope to go. I need to go one of these years, but that was something I missed out on in high school.
It's quite a place. Sorry.
Oh, you've been?
Yeah, I got to go with my high school actually.
Tell us about that.
So I was really lucky, just kind of having a school that does that, because I know a lot of schools don't, and then also being able to actually go on the trip, which a lot of people can't. But no, it was really exciting because we do every other year there's a trip, and then one of those 2 years it's Greece and the other is Rome. So it's Greece, off year Rome, off year Greece, etc. So I was lucky enough that Rome was the one that happened my sophomore year, and it was amazing. You know, I would say that if you are in the position to be able to travel there, that it's 100% worth it. And if you can't, there's also so many kind of digitized versions of everything there, and it is just absolutely captivating to look at all the kind of ancient structures that are still standing, or not standing in a lot of cases. It's just still so interesting to see their sites, and kind of see what's left and see how people are kind of conserving that in the modern world.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that more, about virtual tours of things, because like you said, a lot of folks aren't able to make the trip necessarily when they're in high school, for financial or other reasons, scheduling reasons, things like that. And I think particularly with COVID, a lot of folks, like your trip to Greece your senior year, may not happen if there's still this global situation. Similarly, a lot of museums, I know you're passionate about museums, have not been able to have in-person exhibitions for months now, and they've been doing these digital 3D walkthroughs, things like that, and I think some of that's being done at some of the ancient sites in the Mediterranean too. Have you done any 3D tours? What's your take on that?
I think they're actually a really great way, because, you know, even in the best of times, even in like a non-COVID world, museums aren't the most accessible places because, well, first, their hours happen when a lot of people are working, so some people might not be able to take time off work, and especially on days where they offer free days, those might be on a Tuesday, and that's just not really possible for a lot of people to make. So I think that it's kind of a very important step in like making museums more accessible to just the broadest number of people, is moving things online. And I've had the chance to kind of scroll through museums' collections. I was scrolling through the Joukowsky Institute at Brown, the museum they have there. I was looking at some of the stuff they have, and it's not
that
the
museum
same as going to see it in person.
For people who aren't familiar?
Museum, I think it's the Haffenreffer Museum of Anthropology in Providence.
Okay.
So I was looking at that because it's senior year. I'm looking at colleges, but it wasn't the same as seeing it in person, but it was still just an exposure to so many artifacts that you wouldn't be able to see if you weren't able to go there and they weren't digitized.
Yeah, that's cool. I haven't done any 3D tours yet. The art museum at my university has been sending us emails about their having virtual tour nights, and I need to go to one of them because it's a good museum. What is the Fields Museum your favorite Chicago museum, or no?
I would say I like it. I wouldn't say it's my favorite. I prefer the Art Institute. They're both fantastic museums, but the Field Museum is technically a natural history museum, so more of their stuff centers on animals and specimens. They do have occasional like cultural anthropology, and they have some permanent galleries that are extremely interesting and captivating. But the Art Institute is more material culture and just kind of art and architecture based, and that's what draws me more.
Okay, and that's something that you're interested in pursuing in post-secondary school too, is that right?
Yeah, it's a little early, but I love museums, and I think that would be one of the coolest ways to kind of be able to continue classics education and work, would be in a museum working with that material culture side of things.
And there's a lot of outreach opportunity for museums. You're obviously already involved in outreach by being in JCL and being in a leadership position in JCL. We're always advocating for classics and things like that. So that might be right up your alley and fit nicely with your skill set. My favorite museum in Chicago, for the chat, if anybody's asked, which I don't think anybody has, is the Chicago Museum of Science and Industry. So I've been to Chicago a couple of times, and every time I go, I try and go there. It fits right along with my engineering science side of interests, and they've got just this beautiful rotunda that you walk in on, and there's an inscription at the top of the rotunda that says something like Science discerns the laws of nature, and engineering applies them to the needs of mankind. It's great. It gives me chills every time. It's wonderful. If you're in Chicago, check it out. Definitely. Along with the Field Museum and I'm sorry, what was the other one? The
Art Institute.
The Art Institute, yes. What else should people check out when they're in Chicago if they get a chance to go to Chicago? Or if we have convention sometime in Chicago?
I would love to have convention in Chicago. Maybe that's my next big project. I doubt that would ever fly. But so if I'm giving people a few sites to see in Chicago, if I had that opportunity, I would say spend some time downtown at the Art Institute, but also the Bean. That was on Mr. Ristroff's wonderfully put together thumbnail for today. Was the Bean. And a lot of people, like when I tell them I'm from Chicago and they're from like somewhere across the country and they've never been to Chicago or don't really know a whole lot about it, they'll be like, "Oh, have you ever been to the Bean?" And I'm just like, yeah, but the Bean is really interesting because it's just a big metal bean. There's no like deeper subtext to it. There's no like deep meaning about Chicago in the 21st century that will be unveiled when you get there. It's just a big shiny bean. But it's still cool. I still advise people to go.
What's the history of the Bean? Why did Chicago decide to
and
put
then
in?
there's dinner as well, and just kind of downtown.
Oh, I think we cut out for a second. But could you repeat the last 20 seconds? You said there was no deeper meaning to the Bean, and then you cut out.
Sorry, my bad. But there really isn't a lot of deeper meaning to the bean. It's just a big, shiny metal bean. And the history of it is actually, so when the new millennium came around, Chicago, I believe, kind of received a lot of donations to put a new park in there. So it's called Millennium Park. It was kind of built to show off Chicago in the 21st century. And they hired a sculptor to put together a huge statue or huge monument called, its official name is Cloud Gate, because it looks kind of like a cloud and you can walk through it. But it just looks like a big metal bean. And the artist of it, he's kind of contentious because he made Vanta Black, which is like a special pigment that's supposed to be the darkest pigment on the market. And he, I think, charges like exorbitant amounts for people to use it, which is why people aren't huge fans of him.
Oh.
But that's just side lore to the bean.
The Bean, of course, is not super absorbent. It is shiny and reflective in metal. And there's no artistic meaning to that in particular. It's not supposed to be some kind of reflection of the city's soul or some other...
I think on some level it is. It's supposed to kind of be reflecting the city, kind of a gate into the 21st century. But it certainly doesn't feel like it. And even more so than with a lot of art that people say modern art has no meaning. But I genuinely think that the bean is a really cool sculpture, but it doesn't have a whole lot of meaning. And I think that's okay because it's still a really amazing thing for people to see in Chicago.
Okay. Kyle McJimsey in the chat asks, what is Daniel's favorite place to grab a slice of pizza? Now, they are still slices. They have an aspect ratio that's closer to 1. I mean, everywhere else you get a piece of pizza, and it's nice and flat. I say nice and flat. It is flat. And in Chicago, you get a piece of pizza, and it's more like a piece of pie. And there's nothing wrong with that. I personally love cheese, so I don't see what the beef is about, Chicago deep dish pizza, you're going to drown in your pizza. It's just more cheese. I like cheese. There's nothing wrong with cheese. So let's talk about pizza. It's the inevitable Chicago discussion.
So I guess I'd have to say, in general, I like deep dish and kind of thin crust pizza separately. I think they both serve their purposes. I wouldn't say that there's one I like more than the other. I would say that I eat thin crust pizza more than I do eat deep dish pizza, just simply because it's lighter, it's less intense. But I would say I eat deep dish pizza a disproportionate amount compared to how much I eat pizza. And I would say that my favorite deep dish pizza place in Chicago is a place called Lou Malnati's. It's one of the kind of like few big Chicago style pizza chains in the city, but it's definitely my family's favorite.
So when you eat deep dish pizza, do you eat it with a fork or with your hands or with a spoon or what?
You do fork and knife is what most people do. You can do it with your hands if it's like colder, but when it's hot, it just kind of falls apart if you try and eat it with your hands.
Okay. So in general, it's less portable than sliced pizza or thin.
Yeah.
What is it? than
Definitely
across?
more of a sit-down meal than a kind of pick it up and walk around the room.
Okay. But there are going to be food trucks that have solved that problem, I'm sure. You can get it in like a wrapper or something.
Yeah, you can kind of get it in almost like a carton. It's like it kind of wraps around the sides. And they have them at normal pizza places too. Like I think Sbarro has that, but it kind of sits in there almost like a trough, for lack of a better word. I feel like that's not the best way to describe it, but that's what comes to mind. And it allows you to kind of carry it around and eat it with a little more ease.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. Ann Wilson asks, how do you feel about the Kane Chronicles? I feel like you liked them as a kid. I have no idea what that is. Daniel, this is all you.
So the Kane Chronicles, Rick Riordan, I don't know how to pronounce his name. I've never known how to pronounce his name. The author of the Percy Jackson series, he wrote the Kane Chronicles as well, in addition to a couple other kind of like mythology spin-offs for different pantheons. But those were really good. It was kind of harder to get into because I was like at an older age and I'd kind of like grown out of Egypt. And I think on some level I thought, oh, this is what I liked when I was a kid. This isn't for me now. But the Kane Chronicles are kind of like the Egypt version of Percy Jackson, and they were pretty good looking back, actually.
Wait, do they exist in the same universe as Percy Jackson?
They do, actually. I think there's some crossover incidents, if not in the Kane Chronicles, then in kind of like the expanded Percy Jackson universe.
Oh, man. Okay, I love universes with big lore like this. So I know in Percy Jackson, canonically, like World War II was, or World War One, or several major European wars were the demigods of major gods and goddesses all fighting, right? Like I think they say in the first book that World War II was all of the sons and daughters of Zeus and Poseidon on one side and all the children of Hades on the other side or something like that. How do the Egypt gods factor into all that if these big world-shaking events are all brought about by the Greek pantheon's children?
So I'm trying to think back, and I don't remember a whole lot about the series, just a disclaimer, but I think I remember it being a little more like person-based than Percy Jackson. I think I remember it being more like personal gods, if that makes sense. I'd have to go back. Maybe if I'm ever on the show again, I'll brush up and read up on my Kane Chronicles lore before I come on.
Oh,
But
you'll be on the show again. Don't worry. The officers are going to be heavily featured on the show. That's part of the point, is to make this the most accessible officer group that we've, I think, ever had. So
Yeah,
you'll be back.
I think that's very important. Just like a tangent, I think it's good that we're becoming more accessible this year, and I think JCLive is a really good emblem of that. But in terms of Kane Chronicles, I don't really remember a whole lot, but I do remember the gods just kind of being involved in everything. I think even more personally than they were in Percy Jackson. They would act more than the Percy Jackson gods did, do more stuff themselves.
Okay. Well, I might have to check it out. Ann Wilson says the Egyptian gods were far too busy dealing with their own problems. I guess that's in reference to the world wars.
That makes sense.
Okay. So we've got 15 minutes or so left, so I wanted to talk a little bit about some JCL business. And I wanted to talk about this year's theme, because most of the people I think in the chat probably were at the National Convention this year. Could you tell us some about this theme? Because I know being a candidate for JCL President is an awesome responsibility, because you know that whatever theme you pick is going to be printed on just dozens and dozens of different t-shirt designs and banners, and will be immortalized on the website and in the torch and everything else. And so it's a big task. How'd you come up with this theme? Tell us about the theme.
So the theme, I'll say it off the bat before I get into kind of what drew me to it, is Sibi quisque ruri metit. Each harvests one's own farm. And that's from Plautus's Mostellaria. It's a more idiomatic translation because this was kind of widely used as an idiom and a saying by ancient Roman and Greek people. I think it actually comes to us through Latin from Greek. But what kind of drew me to it was, first of all, I love Plautus. I love the Mostellaria. It's not really like a traditional horror story, but I still love that it is themed around a haunted house, or a house that's purported to be haunted. And, I just kind of love that that is something that we could see in a sitcom episode today. And it's straight out of Plautus from, 2,000 years ago. So that's really kind of thrilling to have something that feels so modern from such an ancient source. But what drew me to this quote specifically was kind of focusing on what we can have agency over in a year where it feels like we don't have agency over a lot of things. A lot of JCLers, we couldn't have convention for one. And then a lot of JCLers like myself are in virtual school. Things don't look nearly the same as they did last year. We were expecting them to look. And it kind of, I think for people like myself who have anxiety and kind of need that kind of calming message, I think that is very important to kind of have that reminder that focus on what you can change, relax, help each other, and just focus on what you can take care of this year, specifically with JCL, and kind of doing everything you can for every Latin and Greek thing and all of each other this year as possible.
That's a very wholesome theme. I like that a lot. When I first read it, it made me think of, just like what you said, the idea of taking care of what you can in the place where you are, and not worrying as much about the rest of the world around you. Not to say that you don't care about what's going on in the world around you, but that I think a lot of people can have a tendency to worry about things that they have no control over. And it is, of course, good to be informed about the state of the world and things like that. But the act of worrying is unproductive, is counterproductive in a lot of cases. And so the idea that you take care of your own farm, take care of your own business, do what you can where you are, that's how I interpreted it. And it sounds like that's what you were going for. So is that a reasonable take on it?
I think so. And, I think I am not familiar with Candide. It was kind of a happy accident, and it also represents kind of some of my evolution on how I personally view the theme. Because I always kind of knew when I saw it, I was like, that is a good theme for a couple of reasons. Partially because I knew there was some like symbolic meaning there, and also because on a very superficial level, it makes good spirit wear. I want to see a lot of farm-themed stuff from our JCLers next year. I know people will come up with good spirit ideas. But no, I think that it is surprisingly resonant with Candide and the whole message of that story.
Yeah, so for those of you who aren't familiar with Candide by Voltaire, I don't necessarily recommend reading it for the younger members of our audience here, but by the time you're a senior in high school, you can probably take it on. It's Voltaire's master work, considered to be his magnum opus, and there are a lot of themes in it, and we don't have too much time to go through the whole thing, but Daniel and I talked about it a little bit before, that I had thought of this year's theme in the context of Candide by Voltaire, and specifically the ending of Candide, where Candide is the main character. He's gone through a ton of stuff over the course of the book, most of it bad, a lot of it his fault, and terrible things keep happening to him, and he has to shake the philosophy that he was raised with, which is this sort of unthinking kind of optimism that he gets from his teacher, that whatever happens in the world it's not his responsibility. His only real response to it is to say, well, that's probably for the best, and even if I can change something for the better, I don't really have to, and if I make a mistake, then it's not really my fault, because everything's going to work out. And it's a very impersonal, detached, agency-free take on the world. And then by the end of the book, he's been disillusioned of that through a string of instances that are written about very well. Voltaire's his satire is extremely witty. It's very biting. It's great. And at the end of the book, all the characters who are left are on a farm, and one of them, I believe, poses some philosophical question to Candide, or asks, oh, so-and-so in the village did this the other day. What do you think about that? And Candide basically says, look, we're not going to worry about that. We're going to cultivate our own farm here. We've got this little home for us, and we're going to take care of that, and I'm not going to worry about that guy, or whatever the circumstance was that the person was asking about, or whatever the philosophical question was. And he said, I'm going to let us cultivate our own farm. And I think that's, who knows, I'm sure next week somebody will have sent me an email that said, oh, well, Voltaire actually read Plautus, and he was making a reference to this particular scene from Plautus and this idiom, and giving us his interpretation of it. So who knows? I'm probably not the first person to make that connection. But it's it's one that I liked, and I'm excited to see what people do with this year's theme.
It's very nice to kind of have that sentiment kind of reassured throughout literature, from Plautus to Voltaire.
Okay, Andrew Mecki asks, has Daniel started learning Akkadian yet?
Ah, yes. So I posted a poll on my Instagram the other day, whether I should buy an Akkadian textbook and start teaching myself Akkadian. Because in addition to kind of reading more about Greece and Rome lately, I also have been reading a lot about ancient Mesopotamia, and that's also kind of something I'm adding to my kind of ancient interest repertoire. So I ordered the Akkadian textbook, actually. It's on the way. So I think that's my kind of self-project this year, since a lot of my usual extracurriculars will be kind of toned down or canceled. It's something I can fill my time with and be something cool to know.
Yeah. Cool. Well, you'll have to let us know how that goes next time you come on. Speaking of extracurriculars, what's your school doing for JCL this year, or do you know?
It's very up in the air. I'm not really sure. I know that Latin Honor Society is going to be doing some virtual spirit project or virtual service projects. And then I think JCL and our kind of Latin club is going to be onboarding freshmen into Curtamen, kind of doing the usual little talks and kind of interest meetings. But it's all going to be virtual, and it's going to be harder to reach some people. But Latin at my school is always a small and kind of tight-knit community, so I don't think it'll be too difficult.
Okay, well, feel free to tell them all to come watch JCLive on the national JCL YouTube channel every Monday from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern. And that goes for the rest of you in the chat. Tell everybody at your school, everybody in your club, tell your teacher, tell your parents. I know I said that earlier. A couple of more housekeeping things that I forgot to say at the beginning, and Daniel, feel free to jump in. There are a couple more links in the description of the video that I forgot to talk about at the beginning, and those are, number one, if you have any feedback for the show, if you want to see any particular features or anything, there's a feedback form. You can tell us, I think your overlay is terrible, or Daniel's audio cut out, get better internet, please keep it constructive and all that. But
no promises on better internet.
It's not always possible, guys. We've got, so there's the feedback form. There is also a form where you can submit any local or state announcements that you want us to make. So at the beginning of the stream, we went through some of the national announcements, but also if you're interested, or let's say there's a Curtamen tournament in your area, or that your high school or that your state chapter is putting on, you can let us know using that Google form, and we can make the announcement. Like if you, for example, let's say if you're hosting a Curtamen tournament and it's going to be a virtual tournament, so anybody can participate, and you're trying to get more schools to register, you can let us know and we'll make the announcement here, and more people will find out about it. Similarly, if you're having, in a normal year, let's say, or if by the spring, when we're still doing this, if conventions are back in person, if you have some large state event like a convention coming up, you can let us know and we'll put out the word. Because I would love nothing more than for some student, maybe a homeschooled student or a student at a school that doesn't have JCL, to watch this show, realize that there is a state Latin club in their area, realize that that state Latin club is having a big convention, sign up for JCL and go to the convention. Because I think there are a lot of Latin students out there at schools who don't have chapters, and this show is for them too. It's not just to encourage them to join the club. Obviously, we'd like for them to join JCL, but it's also to help try and connect them to that larger community, be it through Curtamen or whatever. So the description has all the links, just like Nolan said in the chat. Yes. Okay. So I think those are all the links, the feedback form, the announcements form. Oh yeah, and the last example of an announcement. If you're, like, let's say there are 10 JCL chapters in your city and you're doing like a car wash service project, like a socially distanced car wash for charity or something like that, and you want to advertise it in your area, you can let us know and we can make that announcement. Because let's say, Daniel's club is doing a car wash event and we'd announce it and say, if you're in the Chicago area, maybe consider volunteering. Well, a lot of our viewers won't be in the Chicago area, but they might go, oh, a car wash service event, socially distanced, that's a great idea. And then they might want to do something like that in their area. So these are the sorts of events that we'd be happy to announce, so you can use that form. Grumio the cook asks, what are Daniel's other passions? Graphic design, ? Daniel, you've got 5 minutes. What are your other passions? What?
big fan of Comic Sans. Graphic design is very much my passion.
Uh-huh.
No, but my other passions. Wow, really putting me on the spot there. I like theater. It's been a little while since I've been able to do stuff like that. We did a virtual production at Chicago Youth Shakespeare, which is one of the companies I've kind of been in productions with before, which was really a nice thing to have, especially earlier in quarantine.
Mhm.
Another one of my big passions is board games and tabletop games. I talked about this with Mr. Ristroff and in my introduction letter, but one of the things we did, my friends and I, during quarantine, during the first part, was play a lot of Gloomhaven, or Zoomhaven, as we dubbed it, given the platform shifted to Zoom. But it's a really exciting game. It kind of blends some of the best combat elements of Dungeons and Dragons, and it just kind of becomes more of like a monster smashing game. Than it's less role play than like Dungeons and Dragons and Pathfinder and other games like that. But it's still a really great game.
How many players is it? This is the first time hearing of it. How many people play? How long does it take? Is it campaign based? Is there a dungeon master?
So it is campaign based, and it does take about like an hour or two per scenario. Every scenario is like an encounter. You kind of go in, smash some monsters, get some loot, complete an objective. And interestingly, there is no DM. The players kind of all act as a DM. There's kind of a really cool, almost AI, very rudimentary because it's all card based, but it's like the monsters will have a modifier deck that you'll draw from as you roll for them. They'll move according to a very specific set of rules, targeting the nearest player. It's actually really interesting if you play it. I would recommend that if you have like a group of people that want to play it, pitch in for a copy. It's pretty pricey, but there's a lot of content in the game, and it's a great tabletop game.
Okay, awesome. That could be something. Is that something that would be can be done virtually and streamed and put on a JCLive, for example? Like the NJCL officers play Gloomhaven?
Definitely. We'd have to mail the parts to everyone, but that could be a fun stretch goal maybe.
Okay, that'd be fun. For theater, are you acting, directing, audio, video, all of the above? What do you do?
I act. I've never really tried anything else, and it's not like I'm not like in professional productions or anything. It's just youth theater companies.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of my best creative outlets. I think it's kind of easy for me as a person to get lost in kind of like the cerebral, like reading and like knowledge based stuff. And I think that acting is a really great creative outlet.
Cool. Well, I hope you're able to get back into that at some point when things start to reopen. I'd imagine that socially distanced Shakespeare in the Park isn't quite the same. There does need to be some interaction between the actors on stage, from what I'm given to believe. I am not a theater wizard by any stretch of the imagination, but like you said, it sounds like you haven't been able to do that for a while, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Let's see. Tyler Heiss says, is Gloomhaven the game where you're supposed to like get rid of tokens/rules based on what happened in previous sessions?
Yes. There are like very specific like things, like you get achievements for making a certain decision. Like say I complete scenario 51, I can either go to scenario 52 or 53, and that will impact events that come up for the rest of the game. And it's really nice because, you know, whereas a dungeon master in Dungeons and Dragons is the world, Gloomhaven kind of has a very prescribed world that gets kind of pruned and grown to what the players do. And I think that's really great because it's a lot of less stress on one player, the dungeon master, given that there is no dungeon master, and it's just kind of all pre-created for you, and it's much less intensive, and it's very fun.
Neat. Awesome. All right, well, it's been about an hour, and Daniel, it's been a ton of fun talking with you, as always. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I don't see any last-minute questions from the chat, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up the stream. We'll be back here next week, everybody. We'll be back here every week this year. I know a lot of people are probably on Labor Day holiday today, so be sure to tell your friends, remind your friends when this happens. Try and break 100 viewers, then try and break 200 viewers, then try and break 1,000 viewers, and all that, and grow the show. Try and get more people to watch, try and get more JCLers involved. Don't forget to like and subscribe, ring the bell, all that. Today's notification, I think, went out wrong because I messed up on the making the stream go live. I'm new to this. We've thrown this show together in a month. I think it was reasonably successful tech-wise, I think the overlay looks okay. So we'll be back next week. Like I said, tell all your friends, tell your teachers to tell the other students in their other classes, that kind of thing. Daniel, thanks so much for coming on, and we'll see you next time.
Next time. Thank you all very much.
Okay. Bye, everybody.